Hello and welcome to the second video in my top 5 demographics series. So today I'm going to be going over my top 5 shonen manga, and then we'll be doing josei then seinen over the next 2 days. So I've read, I think maybe shonen is like my second most read demographic. I think it might be seinen might have overtaken it, but I think it might be my second most read demographic. Out of the 4 demographics, shonen tends to be the one I gravitate towards the least, but there is still a bunch of shonen series that I do enjoy reading, and these are the top 5 of those. So let's get on to my top 5 shonen manga. And my first manga on the list is Seraph at the End. Now, Seraph at the End I've been reading a long time. I started reading Seraph at the End when Volume 1 first came out. It wasn't on my radar or anything like that. I actually bought Volume 1 in a W.H. Smith. I don't even know if W.H. Smith still sells manga, but yeah, at the time, Volume 1 has obviously just come out because it was in W.H. Smith, and I saw it, and I was like, ooh, this has vampires in it. I like vampires. And so I picked up the first volume. Does it say when it first came out? Does it say? 2014? So 10 years ago? Is that 10 years ago? Yes, it is, because it's 2024. So I would have been 18 when I first started reading this. So yeah. As soon as I saw it on the shelf, I was like, ooh, vampires. And I picked it up and I read it and I enjoyed it. I did read more shonen back then than what I do now. And the story is by Takeya Kagami, and the art is by Yamato Yamamoto, and Daisuke Fuyuda does the storyboards. But Takeya Kagami's usually a light novel author, like Seraph at the End is his first manga, which is why he doesn't draw the art. He also wrote The Legend of the Legendary Heroes and A Dark Rabbit at 7 Lives, which are both light novel series, and they both also have anime adaptations. I've seen the Legend of Legendary Heroes one, but not the Rabbit one. These days I don't tend to read battle shonen very often because it doesn't tend to be my thing. But I still really like this one because it's been with me for a long time. I've been reading it for a long time, and I do still really like the story for this one. I'm liking all the recent reveals with the vampires and the seraphs and all that. But we're not going to talk about spoilers here. Right, Seraph at the End is a shonen battle manga with vampires and some mystery parts to it as well, I'd say. Before Yuichiro, who lives in this world where the apocalypse has happened due to a sin that humanity committed, and everybody over the age of 13, I think it was 13, 14, died, who hasn't who didn't have special circumstances, which I'll explain later. So Yuichiro at the time I think was 8. I think it was 8 when the apocalypse happened, and he was living in this orphanage called Hakia Orphanage with Mikaira, who was his best friend, and a bunch of other kids. And when the apocalypse happened, the vampires took over the world. The vampires didn't cause the apocalypse, they just took the opportunity to kind of take power after the apocalypse happened. Because they were always around, they just were kind of living underground, but they took the opportunity to take power after the apocalypse happened. And all the humans are taken in as kind of like blood cattle, where they're used as food and stuff. So Yuichiro and his friends are taken to the vampire city of Sanguinum, and they're kept as food, basically. And years later, when they're 12 years old, they only have a year left before they will die due to the virus that affects everyone over the age of 13. And they escape the city, but during the process of the escape, Yu's the only survivor. Mika and all his other friends die, and he runs out of the city and he runs into Goran Ichinose, who is a member of this organization called the Imperial Demon Army. And the reason him and a bunch of other adults are still alive is because they used this thing called Curse Gear, which is where they get this weapon infused with a demon, and they allow that demon to possess them. And due to having this demon in them, it caused them to, like, survive the end of the world. This is kind of explained in the prequel too. And Youth swears that he wants to get revenge on all vampires, obviously for killing his family. So now, at the age of 16, he wants to join the demon army and take revenge. But first he has to, like, go to school for a bit. There is a high school part near the beginning, but it doesn't last long. And he has to, like, learn how to fight, and he has to, like, get his own curse gear, because it's kind of the only thing that can be used to fight against the vampires. But there's a lot more to this series than just fighting against the vampires. That is revealed later on, to do with, like, the apocalypse and the vampires themselves, and who's working with who, and this person called Mahiru, who, like, is kind of like a mysterious figure at the beginning. And yeah, it is actually very good, and some of the reveals later on I was not expecting to happen, but yeah. The art style is kind of typical battle shonen sort of fare. Not, again, it's not my favourite art style, I don't really gravitate towards it, but it's fine. And obviously, I just have a love for this series since I've been reading it for so long, and I do like the premise. It's one of the few, like, battle shonens that I do continue to read and that I do continue to very enjoy, which is why it's at number 5 on my list. It was, at one point, my, like, second favourite shonen, but it has dropped to number 5 since then, but I still really love it. And at number 4 on my favourite shonen manga list, we have Alharo X Machine Gun. This, I think, is considered a sports series because it's, like, it's airsoft. And it's kind of a bit of, like, obviously battle-y, but obviously it's airsoft, so it's more considered to be sports. But we follow Hotaru, who is a high school girl who she dresses and looks kind of androgynous, so people mistake her for being a boy. Especially since she wears the male uniform because she finds it more comfortable because it has wider shoulders or something like that. But her friend, like, is crying one day, and she says she's, like, been at this host club, and, like, something happened at the host club. I can't quite remember what it was. It has been a while since I read this. And so Hotaru, like, gets annoyed, and she storms into this host club, and she's like, "What did you do to my friend?" And he's like, this guy works in the host club, he's one of the hosts, and he challenges her to, like, an airsoft battle to get, like, revenge with a friend. And if Hotaru wins the battle, like, he'll apologise or something like that, I can't quite remember. And if he wins the battle, Hotaru has to, like, pay her expenses or something like that. Anyway, Hotaru loses this battle, obviously, because she's never played airsoft before, and wrecks the place, basically, and he was like, "You need to pay me back, but in order to pay me back, instead of, like, paying me back with money, you can pay me back by joining my airsoft team, because there's currently only 2 people, and in order to enter this competition, we need at least 3 people. So she joins this airsoft team with Masamune and someone called Yukimura, who they've been friends since they were in middle school, I think. But one of the rules, who kind of gets addicted to airsoft, she starts loving it through being on this team, and she pays off her debts, but she wants to continue being on the team. But then she learns that girls aren't allowed on their team for some reason. One of their rules is that the team only can be men and boys. So Hotaru has to continue to hide the fact that she is a girl in order to stay on the team, because obviously they mistook her for a boy when they met her. So it's about Hotaru playing airsoft with these 2 guys, and then there's another guy later on who joins the team. And there's a rival team called Star White, who is, like, the main rivals, who they're always trying to beat. And their main goal is to be the victor of the TGC, which is like the biggest airsoft competition in the country, and they've never won before, and they really want to win, but they can never beat Star White. And they have a history with Star White as well, and that's all interesting. And again, I like the characters in this one. The series has good characters. This is by the Naoe. I can't pronounce her name, but she's the same person who wrote Tokyo Aliens. This was her previous series, and I do think this one is the better series. It's a G fantasy series. So yeah, this is the art style. Looks like this. So yeah, it's about airsoft, and the airsoft battles are very fun, and the characters are very fun. The ending is predictable. I knew exactly what was going to happen in that final volume, and that doesn't take away from the series, though. It's still very good. Still highly enjoy it, and it's still one of my favourites to this day, even though I haven't read it in a while, but it's still definitely a favourite. There is an anime as well. It's only like 13 episodes, but that's also very good if you want to like a tester for this series. Next up, I did start reading that because of the anime as well. Because the anime got recommended for fans of Ouran High School Host Club of all things, because apparently it was similar because the character dresses as a boy and there's a host involved, but there's nothing I like. But anyway, the third on this list of favourite shonen series is Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun by Izumi Tsubaki. This is a comedy gag manga. It's 4-coma. It's like, it's not really a romance, but there is a bit of romance there. It's more comedy. We follow Chie, who is a big fan of her classmate Nozaki, and she has a crush on him. And one day she goes to confess to him, and he gives her his autograph, because it turns out Nozaki is a mangaka, and he writes a shoujo manga series called Let's Fall in Love, and he thinks Chie is a fan of his work. But in actuality, she has a crush on him, and he doesn't realise this because he's kind of dense. And anyway, she ends up helping him with his manga as an assistant, and this is one of the comedy manga that is like kind of episodic, like, that I never get tired of, because a lot of episodic comedy manga I do get a bit dull later on, and I do get bored with them, but this one is one I could never get bored with. I just love the characters in this one so much. And there is, although slow, there is some progression. It's like probably my favourite comedy manga ever. It's one of the few comedy manga that I do actually find funny. It tends to like take the piss out of shoujo tropes and like the typical things you would see in shoujo. So it is a shonen manga, but the author normally writes shoujo, so she knows all the tropes and everything. And you kind of have to have an awareness of shoujo tropes to kind of get the jokes and enjoy it. You don't have to read a bunch of shoujo, you just have to kind of know the tropes. Which are kind of just romance tropes in general, maybe. So yeah, the other characters, we have Hori, who's like in the drama club, and Kashima, who's also in the drama club, and she's considered like the prince of the school. We have Mikashiba, who's like the pretty boy flirt, but he's actually not. He actually gets super embarrassed. He goes up and he flirts with these girls in like this typical shoujo manga fashion, but then he gets very, very embarrassed about it. So he's like kind of like a twist on that character trope. And then we have Wakamatsu, who's the basketball player, and Chio's best friend Sai, who is like, she's in the Glee club, and she's a singer. And they're all such quirky characters, and they're all so lovable, and they're all so funny, and it's very good. And yeah, I love it. Like the art style looks like this. It is 4-coma, so obviously it's not just like 4-coma as in the 4-coma is on unrelated, because there is chapters in this, and each 4-coma in that chapter does follow on from the previous one, and then the next chapter will move on to something else. But yeah, it is a great comedy series, and if you like shoujo and you know the tropes of shoujo and you want to see them like taking the piss out of, give this a go. It is like, it's very good. I highly recommend it. And yeah, it is a shonen despite it being like so centered around shoujo manga itself. It's great. There's also an anime. I think I actually read the manga for that one before I watched the anime though. Okay, next. Number 2 on the list. We have Inspector. This is a mystery shonen series, which I adore. I like mystery in general, but this one is a supernatural mystery. I've suddenly forgotten how to speak once I can actually get it out my mouth. This is a supernatural mystery which follows a girl called Kotoko. When she was 11, she was abducted by a yokai, and she was made into their god of wisdom. So she had her leg and her eye removed, which is a sign of their god of wisdom. And now she solves like disputes among the yokai, which is maybe like mysteries. And the series then moves to when she's in high school, and she meets Kuro, who is I think he's just started college, and she like falls for him straight away. There is romance in here, but it's definitely not a typical romance. But yeah, then obviously you get the first few chapters, which is kind of like the prologue, it's the introduction. She's in high school at the time, and then we skip forward to when she's in college. And Kuro's still, I think they're not that far apart in age. She looks very young, but she's in college for the majority of the series. Obviously, at the beginning, she's in high school, but then it skips forward to her being in college, and that's the point where it kind of stays at for the rest of the series. And Kuro has gone missing. And Kuro has, like, these abilities, because as a child, he ate 2 types of yokai meat. And so he has these abilities, and one of his abilities is that he's immortal. If he dies, he immediately comes back to life. And he has another ability too, which I won't spoil because that was kind of revealed more towards the end of the first storyline. And he's gone missing. And this first one, the chapter 1 is like the prologue, and I think chapter 2 is chapter 2 is where it skips forward. This first volume only has 2 chapters. And she's gone to this town where there's been rumours of this ghost called Steel Lady Nanase popping up, which she has to go and resolve. And Kuro's been missing. And it's there she meets Kuro's ex-girlfriend, who was a police officer, and she's kind of joins in to try and solve the mystery behind Steel Lady Nanase. And this arc lasts for the first 6 volumes, and then Volume 7 onward is like sometimes short stories that only last a chapter, sometimes longer arcs that can last 2 or 3 volumes, but we've never had a one as long as Steel Lady Nanase. This is by Kiyoshi Odaya, and the art is by Jashiba Katase. I've also read a couple other of Kiyoshi Odaya's manga, but this one's my favourite. So yeah, it is based off a novel, originally. The first 6 volumes is based off the original Inspector novel, and then as of volume 7 onwards, the novel and the manga are kind of being written simultaneously, so they're kind of based off of each other, because sometimes the novel will come out first, sometimes the manga will come out first. So yeah, as of volume 7, the source material is kind of both the novel and the manga. There is an anime for this one too, it has 2 seasons. It's good. So yeah, I really like mystery series. I really like the mysteries in this one. They're fun. They're not your typical mysteries, because normally the point of a mystery is to solve it and find out who the culprit is, whereas the point of the mysteries in this one is to lie and make humans believe something didn't involve yokai even when it did. So like Steel Lady Nanase is a ghost, and she is real in the manga, but Kotoko has to come up with a solution as to why these deaths are happening that doesn't involve the supernatural, that is believable. So finding out the truth isn't the point. The point is coming up with a solution that's believable, that doesn't involve the supernatural. And a lot of the mysteries are like that. You do obviously always get to know the truth of what happened as well. But that's not what Kotoko is trying to do. She's not trying to find the truth. She's trying to come up with a believable lie. So yeah, they are very interesting mysteries. And obviously, they're very good. And I love Kotoko herself. She is a great character. She has a filthy, vulgar mouth. And I just love the things she comes out with. They are so funny. Obviously, she is, as of chapter 2, dating Kuro, but you wouldn't think they're dating because he seems to not like her. But they're in a relationship, and obviously he must like her if he agreed to date her, but did she, like, force him? But then there's some moments you see between them and you think he does like her and he just doesn't maybe show it. But, you know, their relationship's very interesting and is quite amusing as well. And yeah, love this series. It's great. If you like a good mystery, give it a go. And, yeah. And my favourite shonen series of all time, this also should not be a surprise to anyone if you've been watching me for a while, is Inuyasha by Rumiko Takahashi. Now, I haven't actually finished this manga. I've only read the first 9 out of 18 omnibuses, so I've only read half of it. But I have watched the anime twice. The anime's like finishes the series. I've heard that the final act part of the anime did miss a lot out and shorten a lot of the arcs, but I haven't actually got to that point in the manga yet to know how much. I didn't really want to include series on these lists that I either hadn't finished or wasn't up to date with if it's still ongoing. So like Inspector's still ongoing, but I'm up to date. Monthly Girl Sasaki-kun, I'm up to date. How It's Machine Gun is finished, and Seraph, I'm up to date. But obviously Inuyasha, despite the manga being finished, I haven't finished it, but I needed to make an exception for this one because I can't not have it as my favourite shonen because it is my favourite shonen. It doesn't matter that I haven't finished the manga, I've finished the anime. I've watched it twice. I loved it as a teenager. As a teenager, this was my number 1 favourite series as all time. I was obsessed with Inuyasha. This series is the first series that I ever, read a fanfiction for. It's the first series that I ever watched an AMV for. I had Inuyasha all over my walls. Every single inch of my walls was Inuyasha. I wrote a character guide. I wrote a weapons guide. I wrote down the name of every single episode. I wrote down the name of every single manga chapter despite not having read the manga at the time. And I still have all those books with all that written down in it somewhere. I attempted to draw fan art, but I was shit. But I did it anyway. I don't think I have any of those drawings anymore because they weren't very good. But yeah, Inuyasha was a big obsession. It was like a part of my identity when I was a teenager, basically. It's a series that follows Kagome Higurashi, and she is... It's kind of an isekai, even though it's kind of not an isekai because it's more time travel, because she doesn't go to another world, she just goes to the past. She falls down the well she's a 15-year-old schoolgirl. She falls down the well at her family's shrine and ends up transported to the past, to the feudal era, where she meets the half-demon boy Inuyasha, who is attached to this tree, and he's been asleep since he was shot by a sacred arrow 50 years ago. And Kokome has this jewel inside of her called the Shikon Jewel, and that's what wakens him up. And then it kind of gets stolen from her by a centipede, and Inuyasha wants this jewel because this jewel can grant anybody's wish who has it, and he has a wish to become a full demon because he's only half demon. His mother was human, his father was a demon. So he wants the Shikon Jewel, but in an accident, Kagome accidentally shatters it into thousands of pieces, and now they're on a journey. It's an adventure action series because they're on a journey now to go pick up all the shards of the Shikon Jewel and find it so Inuyasha can get his wish. And along the way, they meet Shippo, who's a little fox demon, and Moroku, who is a monk, and Songo, who is a demon slayer, who's looking for her little brother. And they all join forces. They're the main group. And Kilala as well, who's like Songo's little cat demon, to look for the shards of the Shikon Jewel. Yeah, and it has romance too. Like, Inuyasha and Kagome were my original OTP. I was obsessed with them. Yeah. This is like, it's another series that came out in the 90s, so the art style is a bit older. These are the re-releases, which are 3-in-1s. You can't get the singles anymore. Yeah, I still remember all of the demons, like you were of the Hare, and the Crow demon, and like, there's also this big villain dude called Naraku, who's like their big opposition, and he takes parts of himself and creates like minions like Kaguya and Kana and other ones. And then Inuyasha has this older half brother called Sesshomaru, who's kind of a character who's very popular too, and Little Rin and Jacken, and yeah, I like the characters too. It's a great series. It's not my number one now, because that would be Fruits Basket, but it's still in my top 5 manga of all time, as well as being my favourite shonen series, because of the nostalgia and because it was such a big obsession of mine during my teenage years. And yeah, the story just basically come down to find all the jewel shards, defeat the bad guy, but it's still really good. It's my favourite shonen now. It'll probably always be my favourite shonen. So yeah, I have yet to watch the sequel anime though about the kids. I haven't watched that one yet, or read the manga adaptation. I probably will eventually, but it wasn't written by Rumito Kakahashi, the sequel series. It was written by somebody else. So yeah, and that is it for my top 5 shonen manga series. I hope you enjoyed the video, and what are your top 5 shonen series? Do share any of them with me. Are they completely different? Let me know down below, because I would be interested to know. Here's a recap. Tomorrow I'll obviously be having Josei will be next, and then Say No will be last. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you then.